Okay, so headlines and images. Why does it matter, the headline and the image that we pick? So, the overwhelming majority of the traffic that we generate, not only for the source sites, but for our client sites, comes from things like email, comes from things like organic search, comes from things like social media. A fourth element that you'd add in there when we're talking about advertisers, clients, is advertising that we do. But readers ultimately, whether it's an ad or it's a social post or it's a an organic search result, summary metadata, or whether it's an article that they see in an email newsletter, they ultimately decide what to click based solely on the headline and the image of every article. And you could put slash advertisement. The basic stats are this: 8 out of 10 people only ever read the headline. So 80% of our potential clicks come from that headline. And the image can impact the number of views that post or article gets up to 94%. That, if you translate that into advertising, it also means that the overall design of that ad can have up to a 94% impact on how many click-throughs it gets. And there's this concept of, a lot of psychologists look into why do people click on what they click on? Why do they share what they share on social media? And what they have found is that using this concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow came up with this a long time ago, but the idea was that you have your basic needs of health, food, sleep, and only when those are fully met do you then move on to safety needs, warmth, freedom from danger. And only when those are met do you move on to a need to belong, love, affection, friendship, belonging. And only when those are met do you optimize your own self-esteem and ultimately achieve self-actualization. And so when people are sharing, psychologists believe that when people are sharing things on social media, they're sharing to increase their own self-esteem, their own popularity, and their own standing among their peers. And when you start to think of why things go viral, why are things shared, in this context, it begins to kind of change your thinking about why people do what they do. So let's talk about headlines and images. Longer headlines have come into vogue. There was a time when online everybody was saying headlines should get shorter, shorter, shorter. The pendulum is definitely swinging the other way now. And longer headlines, within reason, are better. What Andrea and Michael and I have talked about is experimenting to determine how long can long be on the source sites. And so they will provide you with some ongoing best practice in terms of those, how long can we be before we're too long, right? And there are 1,072 context words. And these have been researched and determined to be words that, when they're in headlines, tend to increase the click-through rate on those headlines. And we're going to send you this link, but you can get a sense of just kind of examples of these words. And I encourage you, this is a PDF, I encourage you, print this out, keep this as a reference near your computer when you're putting your articles together and building your headlines, because it's really fascinating. Some of these words, and these are all these are alphabetical, but unfortunately they're alphabetical in the columns, not by page. But what's interesting is they're kind of categorized into time, which relates to urgency; insight, which is kind of action words around what you might gain from reading this article. And then the other ones are relative, meaning like they tend to be words that that cause action. Okay. And what's fascinating about these words is that when you get used to using some of them in your headlines, they can be highly impactful. And I would encourage you, in terms of headlines, to always be observing what draws your own eye as you go around the internet, as you're looking in your social feeds. What are people saying that got your attention? Look at what has gone viral, and look at what you can take from it in terms of what about this gave people that encouragement to share it. What did they get out of it? How did their self-esteem grow? How did their popularity grow? How did their standing among their peers potentially grow by sharing this? And a lot of times it's because it was funny, or it's shocking, or it's all these different things. And we're going to talk today about what headline formats, what best practices for building headlines. But first, I want to share with you a tool that you can use, and we're really at a point where we want to require you to use this. Is testing your headlines to get a score back on what the likelihood is that that headline will be clicked. And here's, we'll come back to this if we have time at the end, and we'll do some samples. But essentially, you just bookmark this tool, and we'll send you the link. But enter any headline there. Like if we just were to say, man bites dog, and we can get a score on what this headline is. Now, 51, you say, what's a good score? What's a bad score? In general, with this tool, you're looking for a score over 70. 51 is not anything we would want to publish, to be fair. But what's good is not only does it give you a score, it tells you what it likes about your headline and what it doesn't like about your headline. And these are all clickable. So it can give you examples of things that it wants you to do. And for example, the most common things you can do to improve are using more alert words, using more context words. Go back to that dictionary that I just showed you. If you have that handy, that's where these words come from. And your score is based on...
Sorry.
Your score is based on two different things: engagement and impression. And again, all this is clickable, so you can learn more about it. But overall, engagement, we're getting a pretty good score, but impression, we're getting a lousy score. And you can go into more depth on the analysis. But overall, what we're trying to do here is you build your headline, and then you keep rebuilding it until you're happy with it. Man bites dog again. And so, we can analyze, and you can see we gained 4 points by adding one more word. Okay. We'll come back to some real examples of this in a second. But I took a real life example and just showed you the difference. So Downtown Franklin Festival returns April 20th. It's a made up headline, but it's the kind of headline that might actually appear in the source. This is it scored a 65. I fooled around with it for about 5 minutes, and I added in, based on the suggestions, I added in words, made it longer. And what I ended up with was alert. Our tips about what not to put in your mouth at the Downtown Franklin Festival coming this weekend. 80. Okay. So 15-point difference by adding this other, taking this other approach. And the first few times you do it, it'll take you longer than once you're used to it. And what this does is by working through your headlines, it's training you how to just default to better headlines automatically. So always test and look for a score of at least 70. Okay. Now, how do you know when to stop? As soon as time, if you are over 70, and you don't have more time to put into this, stop and move on. If you feel like you're making good progress, and especially if this article is like evergreen, it's something that can live forever and continue to generate page views over the longer haul, invest a little extra time in getting a better score. If it's an article that you're putting out very quickly and it only really lives, it's highly perishable, it's about the snowstorm tomorrow night or tonight, you're going to take less time because it doesn't deserve, the input. It doesn't deserve the extra effort. So what are some great templates that you can start with that help you to get a better score right out of the gate? This was in the John Uche video that we all, most of us, I think, shared a couple of months ago on Copy with Taste. And John gave credit to a gentleman named Neville Medora for coming up with these templates. But basically, it argues that there are three types of headlines: superlative, best, worst, things like that; secret, headlines that reveal the unknown; and scary, headlines that either instill fear, cause intrigue, maybe FOMO, fear of missing out. And so he offered these templates: the world's worst advice about, the best blank you've never heard of, the world's most unusual blah. You can also throw Williamson County in place of world. You can throw Sumner County in place of world. You can throw Middle Tennessee, Nashville in place of world. The top 10 most important, whatever, 10 reasons blank is the worst blank. And then when you get into these more secret ones, you get into the hidden truth about 10 secrets the blank experts don't want you to know. The secret of successful blank, little known ways to blank, 10 myths about. And then you get into the more scary ones. And people don't like it when they think, go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People don't like it when they think there might be a better way to do something and they're just not aware of it. 10 blank mistakes you're making without realizing it. Think about some of our clients. A Moment's Peace. 10 skincare mistakes you're making without realizing. That 10 could be 5. The 10 could be 3. The 10 could be 7. The untold dangers of mowing your own lawn. The untold dangers of your trash cans. 10 reasons not to blank. 10 blank things you should never do. Beware of these 10 blanks. You're probably saying to yourself right now, I think I've seen and heard headlines like this before. It's because they work. They're all over the internet. They're particularly all over social media. But the reason is they work. And so don't overlook these templates as great places to start when you're stuck for a headline. There are also some other things out there that are great rules of thumb. There's one called the 4 U's. You want things that are unique, headlines that are ultra specific. Go back to the example I gave you. Doesn't it feel ultra specific to change this headline to alert our tips about what not to put in your mouth at the Downtown Franklin Festival coming this weekend? That's ultra specific. Useful, urgent, time-based headlines will tend to increase how often they're clicked. Surprise the audience. This is an example of something that really got my attention the other day, and I just thought it was a great example. This was an actual article that appeared not too long ago. We analyzed every Twitter account following Donald Trump. 61% are bots, spam, inactive, or propaganda. Now, why would that be a great headline? Because Donald Trump is a love-hate figure. Whatever side of that you're on, this is interesting to you, right? Because if you love him, you're like, oh, here they go again attacking him. What are they saying now? If you hate him, you're like, told you he's a total jag, right? So surprise your audience. When you can say something that is especially related to something that's kind of 50-50 out there, or binary, love, hate, yes, no, doing something that appeals emotionally to both sides of that coin can be really helpful. Use negative words. Believe it or not, people tend to respond to negative headlines way, way, way more than positive headlines. So just framing everything you're talking about in the reverse, instead of like 6 skincare products you'll love, which might also be good. What will be even better is 6 skincare products that may actually be damaging your skin. Negative words, for better for worse, get a better response than positive. Use numbers. The best numbers to use in headlines is 3, 5, 7, 9, 10, and 25. You can go higher, 50, 100. Increments of 25 is kind of where it goes. Sometimes people will do a weird number just to be different. They'll say 26, or they'll say 29 or 19. There's a lot of people starting to do 12. Stay away from 13. People don't like that number. Too many people don't like that number. But there are there's a lot of science around the idea that when numbers are in headlines, it helps people to feel like, oh, there's a finite number, there's a finite amount of time I'm going to have to spend with this. That's why 3 and 5 and 10 are so popular on the internet, because people are like, oh, I have time to read about 3 things or 5 things or even 10 things. And the big one right now is FOMO, fear of missing out. Why is content about new businesses opening and closing always among some of the most popular things we talk about on the sources? Because people like to feel like they're the first ones to know that a new thing is coming or that something closed. Why? Go back to Maslow's hierarchy. They want to be able to share that information because they feel it will increase their own self-esteem. They feel it will increase their popularity, and they feel it will increase their standing among their peers. Oh, well, she always knows what's the latest scoop going on around town. All right, so headlines. Let's spend a few minutes on images before we run out of time. Original images are always the best. Always be asking for images when you're researching an article, when you're talking to a business, when you're interviewing somebody about an event. Ask them if they have any photos that they'd be willing to let you use for the article. Or always be utilizing the resources we have to send somebody out to get photos. And the cropping tool is your best friend. Especially if a photo has already been used before, cropping it to focus in on something that draws the eye, cropping it just so it's different than other things that are already out there, immediately gives your image more weight with Facebook, with Google. Original is better, always better, because when Google and Facebook, when new images are added to the internet, Google and Facebook are immediately comparing them to every other image that they know of, which is every image in existence. And if they've seen it before, they immediately become less interested in your content immediately. And so all original images, whenever possible, are always our best bet. Now, again, if content is designed to be more evergreen, put more emphasis on the images being original. If this is a quick and dirty, perishable article, just use what time allows, okay? And be reasonable about that. But only ever use things that we have written permission to use, okay? Get a text from somebody that says it's okay to use it. Get an email that says it's okay to use it. Get a message on Facebook that says something, paper trail that says it's okay to use it. If you don't have that, don't use the image. Period. Okay? The number one thing you could do in your role with our company that would screw us up financially is if you used unlicensed images without permission. Okay. Now we have, where do you get images if you're, like, here's what you don't do. You don't just go to Google Images and pick one and use it. That's a no-no, huge no-no. But if I need an image and we don't have one, what do I do? We have access to Adobe Stock. We have access to Elements by, we have essentially 2 stock libraries, but there's also universal image libraries out there like Unsplash. There, if you need the list of places, we can provide you with one that where you can be comfortable using images from there. The only big no is don't ever use an image that isn't that we don't own or that you don't have permission to use. Okay? And when you're using something that you have permission to use from someone else, credit and source. And if you don't know how to do that in your post, Andrea and Michael can show you how to do that. Always optimize the image. This begins with the file name and the title and the alt tag and the description. We talked a lot about SEOing images in our last session. And so I'm not going to repeat all of those steps, but if you need to, go back to our SEO session and we in detail and on the checklist, it tells you what to do with those images. And you want the file name, title, alt tag, and description to all include the key phrase, keyword or key phrase that you are search engine optimizing your article or your post about. So just always optimize. And for websites, you always want to use landscape images. That means if you're holding a cell phone, it's not the Instagram. This is portrait. You want to hold the cell phone sideways, long ways, parallel to the ground, and that is landscape. And cropping is your best friend. Cropping tool. Don't just take a photo and use the photo. Most of your cell phones are taking images that you can zoom in and crop, but just always keep the same proportion with your photo. So if the photo's 1920 by 1080, you can crop it, but keep the same ratio of width and height. And if you need help with that, we can easily show you how to do that. How do you pick images? What are the best images to use? Well, bolder is better. Whenever you can give the eye a place to focus, that photo is going to do better than a photo that is very monotone in color, that doesn't really have any large, point of focus, okay? The more colors, the better. Choose photos that have more variation in color, and especially when those colors all bleed to the edge. That's what draws the eye better than other things. Stock doesn't have to stay stock, okay? When you have to use a stock photo, crop, use overlays, use callouts. If you would like, we'll probably do a more advanced photo video at some point, but in general, if you don't feel you have a good skill set around the photos, we have people on our team who can help you with that. Just raise your hand and say, hey, can somebody help me with this photo? And Andrea, Michael, Anita, Megan, anybody on our team can point you in the direction of someone, can connect you with a person who can help you with that, okay? Don't make it a 911. Think ahead whenever possible. Also, when you think about overlays and callouts, think of text as a very limited tool to use, okay? Because like when you get over into Facebook, the algorithms don't like it when there's a lot of text on photos. So just keep that in mind. But stock doesn't have to stay stock, especially that cropping tool is your absolute best friend in the world. What should be in the images? Well, people, places, and unusual things are what tend to get shared and sent around the internet. So you can never go wrong with things like kids, pets. Signs are always good. Vehicles are always good. Construction equipment, things like that. Damage is an absolute no-brainer. Mugshots, no-brainer. And in general, whenever you can use something, the idea is you want that image to raise curiosity. You want that image to make you want to see more, read more, and build on what the headline and image is saying to you. So we'll do Q&A in just a second, but so if you have questions, pop them right now. Go over to in the lower right, go over to the chat and just drop them in the chat. And I'm gonna get out of the screen here, out of the slides, and I'm gonna start tackling Q&A here in just a sec. But let's kind of put a bow on this. So almost everyone who reads your article or your post will first see only the headline and image. And that's just the nature of how we market our content, how we merchandise our content. Whether it's in an email newsletter, whether it's in organic search results, whether it's an ad, whether it's a social post, headline and image is the front door to your article. And you work hard on these articles. So we want the most people to see them, right? One of the most critical measures that we are making internally is the investment we make in editorial cost versus the page views that are generated. So we're keeping track of two metrics, what we call our editorial cost per thousand, what it costs us to generate 1,000 page views with editorial content, and what our revenue per 1,000 page views is, our ad revenue. And what we're hoping is going to happen later this summer, early fall, is that our cost per 1,000 page views and our revenue per 1,000 page views are going to cross. And that is a glorious day. I will be jumping for joy that day. But how you can make that happen soonest is to really let headlines and images drive your process to get the most page views out of every article that you add into the site or into a client site or wherever. Begin with the end in mind. So the same way that last time when we were talking about SEO, we're talking about understand what you want to search optimize that article or post about before you ever start writing, right? Well, your headline is part of optimizing that article. The image you pick is part of optimizing that article. But it also plays this critical role in raising the curiosity of the people who are going to come in contact with it and make them want to click it. Okay? So begin with the end in mind. How am I going to really optimize how many people read this article? Well, I'm going to do that with a provocative headline. I'm going to do that with a great image, and really get in the habit of putting some thought into that as part of what you're doing. And I think in terms of like how much time should you be investing in a headline and image, is think of it kind of two ways. Is this an evergreen post or is it highly perishable or somewhere in between? If something is highly perishable, you want to keep moving, and you don't want to invest a lot of time in content that is going to have a very short lifespan. But if something's at more evergreen, you want to put about as much time into choosing your headline and image as you do putting the content into WordPress. Okay, it's that important. And so if it's taking you 15, 20 minutes to write that article, and it's like a great evergreen piece that's going to live forever, put 10 or 15 minutes at least into figuring out the headline and the image. And you can always go back, and if you love a couple of different headlines, that we have ways to test headlines and get feedback. So you can talk with Andrea and Michael. You can talk with the account management team to try different things, experiment, and get feedback. And we can help you to know what kinds of headlines and images are having the best results out there. All right, so I'm gonna. There's nothing in the chat, so nobody has any questions. I've been so thorough. Here we go. What about using social media images? So I hit on this very briefly, but if there's an image out there in social media and you want to use it, if it's been posted by a government entity, you can use it and source it. What you don't do is save it and then reuse it. What you do is you use that you use the location of that, and we have ways of just using it where it is and not like save as. And so if you need advice on how to do that best, do that. But always source, always credit. And Michael and Andrea can show you how to do that in WordPress in a post or an article. If there's a social media, and a lot of times the best available photo is a photo that someone took because they were there and saw what happened. And so message that person on Facebook or Instagram and just say, hey, my name is X. I'm with The Source. And I wonder if I could have permission to use your photo in an article that I'm writing, and I'll provide you with a credit, a photo credit, and with your permission, I'd like to use it. And I think you'll be surprised that most of the time, people will see that as something that they're happy to allow you to do. 10% of the time, you're never going to hear anything. Maybe a third of the time. But I think, half to 2/3 of the time, people are going to agree without a whole lot of effort. Okay. And in most cases, we'll be flattered and we'll be excited that you did that. And what's great about it is once they see that photo credit in there, they're going to share that article. Hey, my photo was used in this article. So just be very careful, again, with any image that's out there. So, like I say, some of the best images of car crashes, of different things that are going on out there, those photos there's tons and tons and tons of photos out there. But always, always, always get permission. And the exception to that is if the police department put it out, if the school system put it out, if it's a government organization that put the photo out, then there's a fair use doctrine that applies there, and we're able to use that. If it's part of a press release, you don't need permission to use it. Those are the kind of fair use exemptions. What I would suggest, though, is if it's a press release and they've provided one photo and you have time, go back and ask if they have any other photos that you could have permission to use. And if your photo is different than the photo everyone else used, then it's likely that our version of that article about the same information is going to get more views only because it has a more unique photo that everyone else didn't use. Okay. Any other questions? What about length in relation to what Google prefers in relation to showing in organic search? Okay. So how long is too long of a headline? When you're in WordPress and you're putting your headline in, and you go down to Yoast and you're looking at your search optimization, Yoast will yell at you if it's more than 68 characters. Okay. Here's the trade-off is, as long as your key phrase is in the first 68 characters, you can be longer than 68 characters. And even though Yoast is going to yell at you for it, and Yoast might even say, I'm not giving you a green light because your headline's too damn long. If the key phrase is in the first 68 characters and you like that headline, like it got a great score in share through, then I would go with it. Now, again,
So
how long
Steve,
is
is
too
there a
long?
difference between the title of the article in Yoast and the headline? So I think there's two different things there.
No, I mean the title. So there's title, and then there's the URL or the slug. Okay, the title, it will yell at you if the title is too long. It will certainly yell at you if the URL is too long or the slug is too long. Definitely keep the slug, which is the slash whatever in the URL. Definitely keep that to the standard that Yoast requires of you or recommends to you. The title is unique in the sense that now what we're also looking into, and Andrea and Michael and I talked about this on Tuesday a little bit, is we're looking into on the website how long is too long before it starts getting cut off by the website. And so we'll be giving you some guidance on that. But, my suggestion is to experiment with it. We so much of what we do, we learn by doing. And so many of our best practices are developed over time by experimenting. And I will never be upset with anybody for experimenting if it's done in common sense, right? So I would encourage you to do that. And Andrea and Michael are already, I think, undertaking some ideas on how we can figure that out. But definitely the title, as long as the key phrase is in the first 60, I believe it's 68 characters, but Yoast tells you how many it is. As long as it's in the first 68, even if Yoast is yelling at you, if that headline got a great score in the share through app, in the share through test, I'd go with it. All right, guys, thanks for your time. We're running late again, but I think the point here is, and everybody's going to get the slides, and we'll make the video available. I think we figured out how to get these videos turned around a little quicker. So this will be available here shortly next week. And our next topic will be announced here very shortly. I think we've got it figured out. We'll make sure everybody knows what it is here shortly. All right. Thanks for your time. Have a great weekend. And I look forward to catching up with everybody in a month or so on another topic. Thanks a lot.